3 people were killed and 7 were injured due to enemy shelling of Mala Tokmachka in Zaporizhzhia. The Russians fired at the village when humanitarian aid was being distributed there, the military administration reports. People gathered in one of the yards, where the Ukrainians managed to bring medicine and food. It was then that the street was covered with MLRS grad. One of the rockets exploded in the yard. Most of the residents did not have time to hide. 3 died on the spot. 7 victims were hospitalized. Almost half of the wounded are in extremely serious condition. The body of the deceased was found at the site of the 3-story building destroyed by the occupiers in Sloviansk. The enemy attacked the city at dawn. They hit a residential building. It is known about 3 wounded. Another of the rockets hit the school building. There were several rocket hits in nearby Kramatorsk. A Russian rocket hit the premises of a psychiatric hospital. There is no information about the victims. 3 missile strikes on Kharkiv Oblast this night. In the Chugaevsky district, a Russian projectile hit the yard of the hospital. A minute later, 2 explosions rang out in the city of Kharkiv. In the Nemeshlian district, an enemy rocket exploded near a car wash and a coffee shop. There are no data on the injured. In the Dnipropetrovsk region, the enemy shelled the Nikopol district with rocket launchers and barrel artillery. Our military shot down an enemy drone over the Sinelnikovsky district. Meanwhile, the oil depot in Kryvyi Rih, which the Russians targeted with a rocket the day before, was finally extinguished. It burned for more than 16 hours. Offensive operation in the south. Ukrainian defenders liberated some settlements. Head of the United Coordination Press Center of the Defense Forces of Southern Ukraine Natalia Homyanyuk reported. The names are not disclosed, so that the territories are not subjected to enemy artillery and airstrikes. Russian troops left mined areas behind. They pose a threat to the local population. Currently, the vacated areas are being cleared of subversive groups. Almost 1,500 soldiers. Such are the total losses of Russians per day in Ukraine. These are the latest data from the General Staff. It turned out to be a fruitful day for enemy equipment. -20 tanks, 36 armored vehicles, 15 artillery systems and 4 MLRS of the invader. At enemy airfields, airplanes and helicopters are missing. Also, 4 drones and 5 cruise missiles were shot down. The aggressor still has 15 fewer tanks. The General Staff of Ukraine admitted that Ukrainian troops launched missile strikes on the territory of occupied Crimea. In the article authored by Commander-in-Chief Valery Zaluzhnyi, these episodes are chosen as an example of the correct strategy in the fight against the occupier. I quote, "A convincing example of the correctness of this approach in the current year is the successful efforts of the armed forces of Ukraine. From the physical transfer of facilities to temporarily occupied territory of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. It is about a series of successful missile strikes on the enemy's Crimean air bases. First of all, on the Saki airfield." End of quote. Previously, the Ukrainian military did not admit its involvement in these explosions, and the Russian authorities called the detonation of ammunition the cause of the incident. Then Russia lost at least 9 planes. Women will not be banned from traveling abroad. The Minister of Defense of Ukraine postponed military registration for women for another year. The Profile Committee of the Parliament will finalize the draft law. The Ministry of Defense sent its proposals to register women only on a voluntary basis. The Deputy Minister, Gana Malya, said. But, realizing that the legislative process is long, the Ministry of Defense prepared an order. According to it, mandatory military registration for women of relevant professions has been postponed for a year, until October 1, 2023. This will allow the Verkhovna Rada to finalize and amend the laws to settle this issue. The Ministry of Defense of Poland predicts a significant risk of war with Russia. The biggest risk is in the next 30 years. Therefore, record payments from the state budget were planned for the army next year. More than $20 billion. In addition, the deputy of the Ministry of Defense of Poland, Martin Oshipa, reported that almost half of this amount will be added through a new, extra-budgetary mechanism. Everything, he emphasized, depends on how the war in Ukraine ends.